Daniel Hayes had seen many things in his 15 years as a doctor, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. He stood in the medical center of the human colony on Draken Prime, treating a farmer's broken arm, when the alarms started screaming. The sound cut through the peaceful afternoon like a knife. Every colonist knew what those alarms meant. Danger. Something big. Something wrong. Get to the shelters, Daniel told his patient, already moving toward the windows. Outside, people were running. Children screamed. Security teams rushed past with weapons ready. Then he saw it. The creature was massive beyond belief. Its body stretched 15 meters from nose to tail, covered in scales that shimmered like oil on water, shifting between blue and green and purple in the sunlight. Wings spread wide as it descended, each wing longer than the creature's body. The wind from those wings knocked over equipment and sent dust swirling across the colony grounds. A dragon. That was the only word that fit. The colonists had seen the creatures from a distance, flying over the mountains. They had named them Sarek, after an old Earth legend, but seeing one from far away and having one land in your colony were two very different things. "Dr. Hayes, get away from the window," Lisa Grant's voice cracked through his radio. She was the colony's security chief, a former soldier who took her job seriously. Too seriously, sometimes, but Daniel understood. She had 2,000 lives to protect. "I'm going to the shelter," Daniel said. But he did not move. Something about the creature held his attention. It was not attacking. It circled the colony center 3 times, calling out in a sound that was part roar, part something else. Something that made Daniel's chest hurt to hear it. The Sarek landed near the medical center. Security teams surrounded it, weapons raised. Lisa was shouting orders. The creature was so close now that Daniel could see its eyes. They were large and golden, with a depth to them that suggested intelligence. Real intelligence, not just animal instinct. "Fire warning shots," Lisa ordered. The weapons discharged with sharp cracks. The energy bolts hit the ground near the Sarak's feet. Any animal would have run. Any reasonable creature would have retreated. The dragon did not move. Instead, she did something that made every human watching freeze in shock. She lowered her massive head to the ground. Her neck bent until her chin touched the dirt. Her wings folded tight against her body. She made herself small, or as small as a 15-meter dragon could be. It was a gesture of submission, of surrender. "Hold fire," Lisa said, confusion in her voice. Daniel was already moving. He ran out of the medical center before anyone could stop him. Lisa shouted at him to get back, but he ignored her. Something was wrong. Something beyond the danger of a massive alien creature in their colony. The Sarak watched him approach. She did not raise her head. She did not threaten. She just watched with those golden eyes. And Daniel saw something in them that struck him like a physical blow. She was crying, not with tears. Not exactly. But the sound she made, low and broken, was unmistakably the sound of grief, of desperation. Daniel stopped 3 meters from her head. At this distance, he could see every scale, every ridge along her skull. One snap of those jaws could end him instantly. One swipe of those claws could cut him in half. "Dr. Hayes, step away from the creature." Lisa had her weapon trained on the Sarak's head. "Wait," Daniel said. He held up his hand, asking for patience. "Just wait." The Sarak made that sound again. Then, slowly, carefully, she lifted one massive claw. Cupped in that claw, protected by talons the size of knives, was something small. A baby. It was tiny compared to its mother, barely the size of a human toddler. Its scales were duller, softer, and it was clearly sick. Even from where he stood, Daniel could see the baby was not moving much. Its breathing was shallow and rapid. The mother dragon made a sound that needed no translation. It was the sound of a parent begging for help. Daniel looked at Lisa. She had lowered her weapon slightly, staring at the baby in the dragon's claw. "She wants me to help," Daniel said. His voice was steady, but his heart was pounding. "She's asking for medical help." That's impossible, Lisa said. She's an animal. Look at her eyes, Daniel said. Does she look like just an animal to you? The dragon's gaze moved between Daniel and Lisa, waiting, hoping. The baby in her claw made a weak sound, and the mother's whole body tensed with worry. If we turn her away, that baby dies, Daniel said. She knows it. That's why she's here. That's why she's risking everything. Daniel, this is insane, Lisa said, but her voice had lost its certainty. She flew into a colony full of aliens who could kill her, Daniel said. She lowered her head and made herself vulnerable. She's begging us to save her child. He turned to face Lisa fully. What does that tell you about her? Lisa was quiet for a long moment. The other security officers watched, waiting for orders. The colonists who had not reached shelter yet were watching from doorways and windows. Finally, Lisa spoke into her radio. All teams hold position. Do not fire unless the creature attacks. She looked at Daniel. You have one chance. If this goes wrong, if anyone gets hurt, it's on you. Daniel nodded. He turned back to the dragon and slowly walked closer. Each step felt like it took an hour. The mother watched him come. Her body tense, but still, when he was close enough to touch her claw, he stopped. I'll help, he said, knowing she probably could not understand his words but hoping she would understand his tone. Give me your baby. I'll try to save it. The dragon stared at him for 3 long heartbeats. Then, with care that seemed impossible for a creature so large, she lowered her claw to the ground and opened it. The baby lay there, breathing quickly, its eyes barely open. Daniel knelt and carefully scooped the baby dragon into his arms. It was heavier than he expected, but he managed. The baby's scales were warm to the touch. Its heartbeat was too fast, fluttering against his hands. The mother made a low sound, watching every movement Daniel made. I'll do everything I can, Daniel promised. He looked up at the massive creature. I swear it. The dragon's eyes met his. For a moment, Daniel felt like she could see right through him, measuring him, judging whether he was worthy of her trust. Then she stepped back slightly, giving him space to work, but not leaving. She would not leave. Not while her baby was here. Daniel carried the sick baby toward the medical center, aware of the giant dragon following close behind. Lisa and her team formed a protective circle, but they did not interfere. Inside the medical center, Daniel laid the baby on an exam table built for humans. The little dragon looked even smaller here, even more fragile. Karen, Daniel called to his assistant, who stood frozen in the doorway. I need you here. Now. Karen Foster was a young medic, barely 25. But she was good at her job. She stared at the dragon baby, then at the massive mother visible through the window. Then, back at Daniel. Are we really doing this? She asked. We're really doing this, Daniel said. Get me a scanner. I need to know what's wrong with this baby, and I need to know fast. As Karen scrambled to gather equipment, Daniel looked out the window at the mother dragon. She had not moved. She stood like a statue, her eyes fixed on the medical center. On her baby, she had taken the biggest gamble of her life. She had trusted humans with the thing she loved most in the world. Now it was up to Daniel to prove that trust was not misplaced. He rolled up his sleeves and got to work. The scanner hummed as it passed over the baby dragon's body. Daniel watched the screen, his trained eyes picking out details that made his stomach sink. The baby's internal temperature was too high. Its blood chemistry was completely wrong. Something toxic was in its system, and it was spreading fast. What are we looking at? Karen asked, leaning over his shoulder. Poisoning, Daniel said. See these markers? Something it ate or drank is shutting down its organs. He ran the scanner again, double-checking his findings. It's similar to kidney failure in humans, but the progression is much faster. Through the window, the mother dragon had not moved. She stood perfectly still, watching, waiting. Can you treat it? Karen asked. I don't know, Daniel admitted. I've never treated an alien before. I don't know how its body will react to human medicine. He pulled up a database on his tablet, searching for anything that might help. But if I do nothing, it dies. So I have to try. He started with the basics. Fluids to flush the toxins. A mild sedative to keep the baby calm. As he worked, he talked to Karen, explaining each step. It helped him think, helped him focus. The baby whimpered when he inserted the IV line. The sound was small and pitiful, and it carried through the medical center. Outside, the mother dragon's head lifted, her body tensed. Daniel held his breath. If she thought he was hurting her baby, if she decided he was a threat instead of help, she could tear through the walls in seconds, but she did not attack. She just watched, her golden eyes tracking every movement through the window. She understands, Karen whispered. She knows you're trying to help. Maybe, Daniel said. But he was not sure. How could you really know what an alien creature was thinking? How could you be certain she would not change her mind? Hours passed. The baby's condition stabilized, then worsened. Daniel tried different combinations of medicine, adjusting doses based on the baby's mass and chemistry. It was guesswork, educated guesswork, but guesswork nonetheless. Lisa checked in regularly, each time looking more worried. The council wants an update, she said during her third visit. They want to know when the creature will leave. When her baby is well enough to travel, Daniel said without looking up from his work. That could be days. Then she'll be here for days. Lisa sighed. You're asking a lot of these people, Daniel. They're scared. That thing outside could level half the colony if it wanted to, but she hasn't. Daniel said. He finally looked up at Lisa. She's been standing there for 6 hours without moving, without threatening anyone. She's scared too. Can't you see that? Lisa looked out the window at the massive dragon. I see a predator that could kill us all. I see a mother trying to save her child, Daniel said. Just like any human mother would. The argument was interrupted by an alarm from the medical scanner. The baby's heart rate was dropping. Fast. Daniel moved quickly, preparing an injection. The medicine was a stimulant, something to shock the baby's system back into rhythm. But it was risky. Too much could kill it, too little would do nothing. His hands shook as he filled the syringe. This was the moment. This was where he either saved this baby or watched it die. He looked out the window at the mother dragon. She was watching him. And for a moment their eyes met across the distance. He saw the fear in her gaze, the desperate hope. Trust me, he whispered, knowing she could not hear him. Please, trust me. He injected the medicine into the baby's IV line. For 5 seconds, nothing happened. The baby's heart rate continued to drop. The monitor beeped faster, more urgent. Then the baby gasped. Its eyes opened wider. Its heart rate jumped, then steadied into a more normal rhythm. Daniel let out a breath he had not known he was holding. Come on, he said to the baby. Fight. You can do it. The baby's breathing deepened. The color of its scales began to brighten slightly. On the monitor, its vital signs slowly climbed back toward safer ranges. It's working, Karen said, her voice full of relief. Outside, the mother dragon made a sound. It was different from her earlier cries. This one was higher, almost a chirp. She took a step closer to the window, her head tilting to see better. She knew. Somehow, she knew her baby was improving. Daniel worked through the night. Karen stayed with him, bringing food and coffee that went mostly untouched. The baby dragon slowly recovered, its body fighting off the toxins with the help of the medicine. By dawn, it was breathing normally. Its eyes were fully open, looking around with curiosity. Daniel was exhausted. He sat in a chair next to the exam table, watching the baby sleep. Every muscle in his body ached. His eyes burned from lack of sleep. But he had done it. The baby would live. A sound made him look up. The mother dragon was still there, of course. She had not moved from her spot all night. But now she was doing something different. She was lowering her head again, that same gesture of submission she had made when she first arrived. But this time, it felt different. This time, it felt like gratitude. "You should return the baby," Karen said gently, "before the whole colony has a panic attack." Daniel nodded. He carefully disconnected the IV and lifted the baby dragon. It was stronger now. Squirming slightly in his arms, he walked to the door of the medical center, aware that he was about to get very close to a very large predator. Lisa met him at the door with a full security team. "Are you sure about this?" "No," Daniel said honestly. "But we can't keep her baby forever." He walked out into the morning light. The mother dragon watched him approach, her body tense. Daniel stopped a few meters away. "Your baby is going to be okay," he said. "The toxins are clearing from its system. It needs rest, but it will recover fully." The dragon, of course, did not respond in words, but she slowly extended one massive claw, palm up, waiting. Daniel walked forward and gently placed the baby in its mother's claw. The little dragon immediately curled against its mother's scales, making small, happy sounds. The mother dragon brought her baby close to her chest, cradling it with both claws. She inspected it carefully, checking every part of her child. Then she looked at Daniel, and he saw tears in her golden eyes. Real tears this time. Not grief, but joy. She did something that made every security officer raise their weapons. She reached out with one claw toward Daniel. "Hold fire!" Lisa shouted, but her voice was tight with fear. The claw came closer. Closer. Daniel stood frozen, unsure what to do. Then the mother dragon gently, so gently, touched his shoulder with the tip of one talon. The touch was feather-light, careful not to harm him. It was a gesture of thanks, of connection. Daniel slowly raised his own hand and placed it on her claw. The scales were warm and smooth under his palm. For a moment, human and dragon stood together in silence, understanding passing between them without words. Then the dragon pulled back. She gathered her baby close and spread her wings. Daniel thought she would fly away immediately, return to wherever she had come from, but she did not. She moved a short distance away and settled down on the ground. She made a small nest of her own body, curling around her baby to keep it safe and warm. And then she looked at Daniel again. She was not leaving, not yet. She wanted to stay close to the human who had saved her child. "Oh no," Lisa said. No, she can't stay here." "I think she just decided she can," Daniel said. He could not help but smile, despite his exhaustion. "We saved her baby. She trusts us now." "The council is going to lose their minds," Lisa said. "Probably," Daniel agreed. "But look at her. She's not threatening anyone. She's just a mother wanting to keep her baby safe." Lisa stared at the dragon, then at Daniel, then back at the dragon. Finally, she lowered her weapon. "You know what the craziest part is? I'm starting to agree with you. That thing out there is more reasonable than half the council members." Daniel laughed, surprised by how good it felt. He looked at the mother dragon, watching her gently clean her baby's scales with her tongue. Such a simple gesture. But it spoke of love, of care, of all the things that made someone a parent, rather than just a biological creator. "We need to give her a name," Daniel said. "A name?" Lisa looked at him like he had lost his mind. "She's not just the creature anymore," Daniel said. "She's an individual. A person. She deserves a name." "And what would you call her?" Lisa asked. Daniel thought for a moment. "Vela. It means guarded, protected. She came here to protect her baby." "Vela," Lisa repeated. She shook her head, but she was smiling. "You're insane. You know that. Right?" "Maybe," Daniel said. "But I saved her baby and she knows it. That means something." Over the next 3 days, Vela remained near the colony. She did not enter the settlement, but she stayed close, always visible. Colonists grew used to seeing her there, curled around her baby. Children pointed at her from windows. Some of the braver colonists even waved. Vela watched everything with those intelligent eyes. She saw humans go about their daily lives. She saw parents with their children. She saw the community working together. And on the third day, something happened that changed everything. Vela stood up. Her baby, now fully recovered and playful, climbed onto her back. She spread her wings and called out in a sound that echoed across the valley. From the mountains in the distance, other dragons answered. 5 dragons descended from the mountains, their wings blotting out the afternoon sun. The colony alarms screamed again. Colonists ran for shelters. Security teams scrambled to defensive positions. "Everybody stay calm," Lisa's voice boomed through the loudspeakers, though she sounded anything but calm herself. "Do not fire unless fired upon." Daniel ran out of the medical center, his heart pounding. Vela had not moved from her spot near the colony. Her baby was on her back, watching the approaching dragons with excited chirps. She did not seem afraid. If anything, she seemed to be expecting this. The 5 dragons landed in a semicircle around Vela. They were all massive, though one was even larger than the others. Its scales deep bronze instead of Vela's blue-green shimmer. That one stepped forward, and Vela bowed her head in respect. "That's their leader," Karen said, standing next to Daniel. She had a camera, recording everything. "This is incredible. We're watching actual alien social behavior." The bronze dragon approached Vela. They touched heads, a gesture that seemed intimate, familial. Then Vela's baby jumped down and ran to the bronze dragon, who scooped it up gently. The bronze dragon inspected the baby carefully, checking it over just as Vela had done days ago. Then the bronze dragon turned its gaze on Daniel. Those eyes were darker than Vela's, more orange than gold, and they held a weight of years. This was an old creature, Daniel realized. A wise one. It studied him for a long moment, and Daniel felt like he was being judged. Then the bronze dragon did something that made the entire security team tense. It walked toward Daniel, each step measured and deliberate. "Dr. Hayes, get back," Lisa said over the radio. Daniel did not move. He remembered Vela's gentle touch on his shoulder, the trust in her eyes. If he ran now, if he showed fear, it would undo everything. The bronze dragon stopped 3 meters away, just as Daniel had stopped when he first approached Vela. The distance felt intentional, respectful. Then the dragon bowed its head, just as Vela had done. "It's thanking you," Karen whispered. The bronze dragon raised its head and made a complex series of sounds. Its scales flickered with color, shifting through shades of blue and green and gold. Vela responded with her own sounds and color changes. The other dragons joined in, creating a symphony of color and voice. "They're talking," Daniel said. "It's a language, an actual language." After a few minutes, the bronze dragon turned and walked back to the other Sarek. But it did not leave. Instead, it settled on the ground. Folding its wings, the other 4 dragons did the same, forming a rough circle around Vela and her baby. They were staying. "This is bad," Lisa said, walking up to Daniel. 1 dragon was pushing it. 6 dragons is going to cause mass panic. "They're not attacking," Daniel pointed out. "They're just sitting there, for now. But what happens when they get hungry? What happens when they decide we're a threat?" Daniel looked at the dragons. They were watching the colony with curiosity, but not aggression. Vela's baby was playing with something on the ground, pouncing on it like a human kitten with a toy. The sight was so normal, so innocent, that it made Daniel smile. "I think they want to communicate," he said. "I think Vela told them what we did for her baby. And now they want to understand us. Or they're planning to eat us," Lisa muttered. Over the next few days, something remarkable happened. The dragons did not leave. But they also did not threaten. They stayed in their circle near the colony, watching, learning. Daniel spent every spare moment observing them. He brought Karen and 2 other scientists, and together they began to understand the basics of dragon communication. The color changes in their scales corresponded to emotions and concepts: red for danger, blue for calm, green for curiosity. The sounds they made were complex, with multiple meanings depending on tone and context. The bronze dragon, which Daniel had started calling Elder, seemed particularly interested in the humans. It watched them work, watched them interact with each other. When colonists brought food from the cafeteria, Elder watched that too, tilting its massive head as humans sat together and ate. On the 5th day, something changed. Elder made a low, rumbling sound and walked toward the colony. Not aggressive, but purposeful. It stopped at the edge of the settlement and waited. "I think it wants to come closer," Daniel said. "Absolutely not," Lisa said immediately. "We can't let a creature that size into the colony." "But what if that's the point?" Daniel argued. "What if Elder wants to show us something? What if they're trying to build trust, and we keep pushing them away? Or what if it wants to see how easy it would be to attack us?" Lisa shot back. Elder waited patiently, not moving forward but not retreating either. Vela walked over to stand beside Elder, her baby following. She looked at Daniel and made a soft sound, almost questioning. "She's vouching for them," Daniel said. "She's saying they're safe." Lisa was quiet for a long moment. Finally, she sighed. "If this goes wrong, I'm blaming you in my report." "Fair enough," Daniel said. He walked toward Elder, aware of every security officer watching. When he reached the dragon, he stopped and waited. Elder studied him, then slowly extended one claw. In that claw was something large and crystalline, pulsing with an inner light. Daniel carefully took the crystal. It was warm, almost hot, and surprisingly light for its size. Lisa came closer with a scanner, checking it for danger. "It's pure energy," she said, staring at the readings. "This thing is worth more than our entire colony ship." "Where did they get this?" Elder made another sound and gestured with its head toward the mountains. Vela stepped forward and, using one claw, drew patterns in the dirt. Simple pictures. Dragons. Mountains. Crystals in the rock. "They mine them," Karen said, watching in fascination. "They're showing us where the crystals come from." Elder drew more pictures. Dragons working together. Dragons sharing. Then it pointed at the crystal in Daniel's hands, and then at the medical center. "It's a gift," Daniel said. "They're giving us this to say thank you for saving Vela's baby." The gift was taken to the colony leaders, who could not believe what they were seeing. The crystal alone could fund the colony for years. But more important than the crystal was what it represented. The dragons were not just intelligent. They were civilized. They had language, culture, and the ability to form complex thoughts. They understood gratitude and reciprocity. A meeting was called. The entire colony gathered in the central hall to discuss what to do next. Opinions were divided. Some people wanted to establish formal contact, to learn from the dragons and teach them in return. Others wanted the dragons to leave, fearing what might happen if things went wrong. During the meeting, Elder did something unexpected. It approached the hall and looked through the large windows. Colonists gasped and moved back, but Elder just watched, its orange eyes taking in the scene of humans gathered together, talking, debating. Then it began to draw in the dirt outside. More pictures. Dragons gathered together, talking. Dragons teaching younger dragons. Dragons making decisions as a group. "It understands what we're doing," Karen said in wonder. "It sees us having a democratic meeting, and it's showing us they do the same thing." Elder finished its drawing and looked at Daniel. It made a complex sound, its scales shifting through multiple colors. "I wish I knew what you were saying," Daniel said. Over the next week, Daniel and his team worked intensively to establish basic communication with the dragons. They used pictures, gestures, and careful observation. The dragons were patient teachers, repeating things when humans did not understand, trying different approaches. The breakthrough came when Karen discovered that the dragons could understand written symbols. She drew a simple picture of the sun and showed it to Elder. Elder studied it, then drew its own version, adding details that showed the sun's path across the sky. They were not just intelligent, they were educated. They had their own form of writing, their own way of recording knowledge. Through patient exchange of drawings and gestures, a story began to emerge. The dragons called themselves the Sirach, as humans had guessed. They had lived on this world for thousands of years, long before humans arrived. They had watched the human colony ship land, curious about the strange creatures from the stars. But the Serac had a problem. Their population was declining. Babies were being born sick, dying young. Elder drew pictures of many baby dragons, then crossed most of them out. The grief in that simple drawing was clear. Vela's baby had eaten plants contaminated by human agricultural chemicals, but that was just the final trigger. The baby had already been weak, already sick with whatever was affecting all young Serac. Elder drew a picture of Daniel treating Vela's baby. Then it drew more pictures. Many sick baby dragons. A question mark, a plea. "They want our help," Daniel said, his voice tight with emotion. "They want us to help save their children." He looked at Elder, at Vela, at all the dragons watching with hope in their eyes. They had overcome their fear of aliens from the stars. They had made themselves vulnerable, shown their weakness, asked for help. How could humanity say no? Daniel worked with Karen and 2 other doctors to examine Vela's baby again. This time taking detailed samples. They found a genetic disorder, something that affected the baby's ability to process certain nutrients. It was treatable, definitely treatable, but it would require resources and time. He prepared a presentation for the Colony Council, showing his findings and his proposed treatment plan. But before he could present it, something happened that changed everything. A ship appeared in orbit. Not a colony ship. Not a supply vessel. A military ship. The Sentinel had arrived, and its commander had questions about why a human colony was associating with dangerous alien predators. Captain Stephen Parker stood in the colony's council chamber, with the rigid posture of a man who had already made up his mind. He was tall and broad-shouldered, his uniform perfectly pressed despite the long journey from Earth. His eyes were cold as he looked at the images of the Serac on the main screen. "You've allowed hostile aliens to establish a camp outside your colony," he said, his voice sharp. "You've exposed civilian lives to unknown dangers. This ends now." Daniel stood across from him, tired from another sleepless night treating sick Serac babies. 3 more had been brought to him by their parents, each one carefully placed at the edge of the colony, with the same desperate hope Vela had shown. All 3 were responding to treatment. "They're not hostile," Daniel said, trying to keep his voice calm. "They've done nothing to threaten us. They're asking for medical help. They're apex predators the size of transport ships," Parker said. "The fact that they haven't attacked yet doesn't mean they won't. My orders are clear. The Serac must leave this area, or they will be removed by force." "Removed by force?" Lisa spoke up. She had been quiet until now. But Daniel could see the anger building in her. "Captain, with respect, these creatures have shown nothing but peaceful intentions. We're establishing first contact with an intelligent species." "You're being manipulated," Parker said flatly. "They're using your sympathy to gain access to human resources and technology. It's a classic infiltration strategy." "Infiltration?" Daniel could not keep the disbelief out of his voice. "They're bringing us sick babies. What kind of infiltration strategy involves showing your enemy your weakest members?" Parker pulled up a new image on the screen. It showed the Serac settlement in the mountains, visible through high-powered scanners. Long-range scans show unusual energy signatures throughout their territory, signatures consistent with weapons technology. "Those are natural bioelectric fields," Karen interjected. She had been analyzing Serac biology for days. "It's how they communicate and regulate body temperature. It's not weaponry." "You've been studying them for less than 2 weeks," Parker said. "You can't possibly know what they're capable of, and you've been here for less than 2 hours, Daniel shot back. "We've lived with them, worked with them. They're not what you think they are." Parker's jaw tightened. "Dr. Hayes, I understand you feel a personal connection to these creatures because you provided medical care. But that doesn't change the strategic reality. Earth Command cannot allow an unknown alien species to establish a presence around a human colony. The risk is too great. The only risk here is that we'll throw away the chance to make real peace with another species," Daniel said. "The Serac are intelligent. They have language, culture, and technology. They're people, Captain. Not animals or weapons. Then they should understand when we ask them to leave, Parker said. You have 24 hours to cease all contact with the Serac. I'm establishing a security perimeter around the colony. Any Serac that crosses it will be treated as a hostile force. The meeting ended badly. Daniel stormed out, Lisa close behind him. Karen followed, her face pale. He's going to start a war, Lisa said. Over nothing. Over fear. We have to warn the Serac, Daniel said. We have to tell them what's happening. He went to the edge of the colony where Elder waited with Vela and the others. The bronze dragon looked up as Daniel approached, and somehow, without words, seemed to understand something was wrong. Daniel pulled out his tablet and drew frantic pictures. Humans with weapons, humans attacking, danger. He kept drawing, trying to communicate the urgency, the threat. Elder watched carefully. Then it drew its own picture. Dragons leaving. Humans safe. No, Daniel said. No, you don't understand. If you leave, the sick babies will die. We need more time to treat them. But how do you explain complex medical treatment through pictures? How do you make an alien understand the difference between leaving for safety and abandoning those who need help? Elder seemed to think for a long moment. Then it made a deep sound, a call that echoed across the valley. From the mountains, more dragons appeared. Many more. They came in groups, dozens of them, until the sky was filled with wings. They landed around the colony in a massive circle. They did not attack or threaten. They simply stood there, forming a living wall between the human military and their mountain home. In the colony, alarms blared. Security teams mobilized. Parker's voice came over the loudspeakers, ordering all civilians to shelters. What are they doing? Karen asked, staring at the mass of dragons. Daniel understood. His heart broke as he understood. They're not leaving. They're protecting their families, even if it means dying. Parker emerged from the colony headquarters with a full military detachment. He looked at the circle of dragons, and his face went hard. This is an act of aggression. They're trying to intimidate us. They're standing their ground, Daniel said. Just like any parent would. Just like any human would. If someone threatened their children, I have authorization to use force, Parker said. Against unarmed civilians? Daniel gestured at the dragons. That's what they are, Captain. Not soldiers. Not invaders. Parents. Families. People who came here because their children are dying, and they hoped we would help. My job is to protect human lives, Parker said. Then protect them by making peace, not war, Daniel pleaded. We have a chance here. A real chance to show the galaxy who humans are. Are we the kind of species that helps those in need? Or are we the kind that kills them for being different? Parker was quiet for a moment. Then he shook his head. I have my orders. I have my orders. He turned to his tactical officer. Prepare to fire warning shots. If the creatures don't disperse, prepare for full engagement. Daniel made a decision in that moment, a reckless, possibly career-ending decision. But the only one his conscience would allow. He accessed the colony's communication array and sent out a wideband transmission. Not just to Earth Command, but to every human settlement within range, to civilian networks, to news services, to anyone who would listen. He broadcast live video of the Serac standing peacefully outside the colony. He showed Vela with her healthy baby. He showed the sick babies in the medical center. He showed Elder's drawings, the attempts at communication, the gifts given in gratitude. He told Vela's story. How she had overcome fear to beg for help. How she had made herself vulnerable to save her child. How she had trusted humans with the things she loved most in the world. And he showed Parker, preparing to fire on unarmed aliens whose only crime was refusing to abandon their dying children. This is Dr. Daniel Hayes of the Dracon Prime Colony, he said into the camera. We have a chance to make history here, to show the galaxy what humanity really is. I'm asking anyone who can hear this. Is this who we want to be? Is this the message we want to send to the universe? Parker realized what was happening and tried to shut down the transmission, but it was too late. The message was out, spreading through human networks at the speed of light. Within hours, responses started coming in. From Earth, from other colonies, from civilian leaders and military commanders, and ordinary people who saw the images and made their voices heard. They said no. This was not who humans were. This was not what they wanted. Earth Command countermanded Parker's orders. A new message came through, directing him to stand down and establish peaceful contact with the Serac. The Secretary of Interstellar Affairs herself appeared on screen, her face grave. "Captain Parker, you are to take no aggressive action against the Serac. Dr. Hayes, your transmission has caused quite a stir here on Earth. I'm dispatching a diplomatic team immediately. In the meantime, you're authorized to continue medical treatment and establish formal communication protocols." Parker's face went red with anger and humiliation. He looked at Daniel with pure hatred. "You went over my head. You violated chain of command." "I did what was right," Daniel said simply. "And I'd do it again." Parker turned and walked away, his team following. But the damage to his pride was done. He had been overruled by public opinion, by people who saw the situation more clearly than he had. Daniel turned to Elder, who had watched the entire confrontation with those wise orange eyes. The dragon had not moved, had not shown fear, even when weapons were pointed at its people. "It's okay," Daniel said. "You're safe. We're going to help your children." Elder stared at him for a long moment. Then it did something remarkable. It walked forward and lowered its massive head until its chin touched the ground at Daniel's feet. Not submission this time, something else. Respect. The other dragons followed Elder's lead, each one bowing their heads. The gesture was clear even across the divide of species. They recognized what Daniel had risked for them. They understood that he had stood between them and harm. Vela approached last, her baby on her back. She touched Daniel's shoulder with her claw, that gentle gesture that had become their private greeting. The baby chirped happily and jumped down, running circles around Daniel's feet. Karen came up beside him, camera still recording. "You just changed human history," she said softly. "No," Daniel said, watching the dragons raise their heads again. "They did. They took the first step. They chose to trust us. I just made sure that trust wasn't betrayed." 3 months later, Draken Prime looked like a different world. The medical center had been expanded twice to accommodate the steady stream of sick Serac babies. Daniel had trained 5 more doctors in alien medicine, and they worked in shifts to provide round-the-clock care. The success rate was remarkable. 37 babies treated, 36 saved. Only one had been too far gone when it arrived, its systems already shutting down despite everything Daniel tried. He still thought about that one baby sometimes, still wondered if there was something more he could have done. The Serac had moved their main settlement closer to the colony, building their homes in the foothills within sight of human buildings. Every morning, Daniel could look out his window and see dragon families going about their lives. Babies playing in groups while parents watched. Elders teaching younger dragons. It was peaceful and ordinary and utterly alien all at once. The diplomatic team from Earth had arrived 6 weeks ago. They were still trying to establish formal communication protocols, still writing reports about every aspect of Serac culture and biology. But the real communication happened at a much simpler level, between individuals who had learned to trust each other. Daniel walked through the colony plaza where a remarkable scene was unfolding. Human children were playing with young Serac. A game that seemed to involve a lot of running and jumping and cheerful chaos. The dragon children were careful with the smaller humans, aware of their own strength. The human children showed no fear, treating the young dragons like any other playmates. Parents watched from both sides. Human mothers and fathers sat on benches next to Serac parents, all keeping an eye on their offspring. A few were even attempting conversation through the mixture of gestures, drawings, and the few words each species had learned of the other's language. "Never thought I'd see the day," Lisa said, walking up beside Daniel. She had a cup of coffee in one hand and a tablet in the other. "Dragons," and humans having playdates. How are the council meetings going? Daniel asked. Better. The new trade agreement is almost finalized. The Serac are teaching us about the native plants and which ones are safe. We're teaching them about human agriculture and medicine. It's actually working. And Parker? Lisa's smile faded. Reassigned to a desk job on Earth. His superiors were not happy about how he handled the situation. Turns out threatening to shoot peaceful aliens on live broadcast is bad for your career. Daniel felt a twinge of guilt, but only a twinge. Parker had made his choices. Daniel had made his. There's someone who wants to see you, Lisa said, gesturing toward the medical center. Daniel walked over and found Elder waiting outside, as patient as always. Vela was there too. Her baby now 3 times the size it had been when Daniel first treated it. The little dragon was healthy and energetic, constantly getting into trouble. Elder made a series of sounds and gestured with its head toward the mountains. An invitation. You want me to come with you? Daniel asked. Elder nodded, a gesture it had learned from watching humans. Daniel looked at Lisa, who shrugged. The diplomatic team will want a full report. But go. This is what we're here for, right? Building bridges. Daniel climbed onto Elder's back, something that would have been unthinkable 3 months ago. The dragon's scales were warm under his hands, and he could feel the powerful muscles moving as Elder stood. Vela took off first, her baby riding on her back and chirping with excitement. Elder launched into the air with smooth power. The ground fell away below them, and Daniel's stomach lurched. But he trusted Elder. The dragon had never given him reason not to. They flew over the foothills and into the mountains proper. Daniel saw the Serac settlement spread out below, far larger than he had imagined. There were hundreds of dragons here, maybe thousands. They lived in caves that had been carved and shaped over generations, creating a city within the stone. Elder landed on a wide plateau near the summit of the highest peak. Other dragons were gathered here, dozens of them. They parted as Elder walked forward, making a path. At the center of the plateau was something that took Daniel's breath away. A massive crystal. Easily 3 times his height. Growing from the living rock, it pulsed with light, shifting through every color imaginable. Around it, carved into the stone, were images, dragons, history, stories told in pictures and symbols. Elder gestured to the crystal, then to Daniel. It made a complex series of sounds, its scales flickering with colors Daniel had learned to recognize. Blue for peace, green for growth, gold for honor. The other dragons began to vocalize, creating a harmony that made the air itself seem to vibrate. It was beautiful and haunting, and unlike anything Daniel had ever heard. Elder drew in the dirt with one claw. It showed a baby dragon sick and dying. Then Daniel. Small but recognizable. Then the baby healthy. Then more babies. More healing. Then dragons and humans together, working side by side. Below that, Elder drew a new image. A human wearing something on its head. A crown? No, not quite. Something else. It took Daniel a moment to understand. It was a title, an honor. Elder was inducting him into something, some position within Serac society. I don't understand, Daniel said. What are you giving me? Vela stepped forward. She drew her own picture. A dragon protecting baby dragons. Then Daniel protecting baby dragons. Then the same symbol Elder had drawn, Keeper of Wings. Karen's voice came through Daniel's radio. She had been monitoring from the colony. I think that's what it means. Someone who protects the young. It's a position of great honor in their culture. The ceremony continued. Each elder dragon approached and touched Daniel gently with one claw, a gesture of acceptance. Vela's baby, too young to understand the full significance but sensing the importance, brought Daniel a small crystal and placed it in his hands. Daniel felt tears on his face. These creatures, these magnificent beings, were honoring him for doing what any decent person should do, for helping when help was needed, for choosing compassion over fear. When the ceremony ended, Elder brought him to the edge of the plateau. The view was breathtaking. Below, He could see both the Serac city and the human colony, separated by distance but connected by growing trust. Elder made a soft sound and used its claw to draw one final image. Not in the dirt this time, but in the air. Using bioluminescence that Daniel had not known the Serac possessed, the image glowed in the fading light of day. It showed dragons and humans together. Not dragons serving humans or humans controlling dragons. Just two peoples, side by side, helping each other. A future built on the foundation Vela had laid when she overcame her fear and asked for help. A future that started with one desperate mother and one human who chose to see the person behind the alien face. The flight back to the colony was peaceful. Daniel rode on Elder's back, watching the world pass below. When they landed, a crowd had gathered. News of the ceremony had spread. Colonists wanted to see, to ask questions, to understand. But before Daniel could explain anything, something else happened. A ship appeared on the horizon. Not a military vessel this time. A civilian transport, larger than the colony ship that had brought the first humans here. It landed, and the passengers who emerged were not soldiers or bureaucrats. They were doctors, scientists, teachers, engineers, people who had seen Daniel's broadcast 3 months ago and decided they wanted to be part of this. "We came to help," their leader said, an older woman with kind eyes. "We saw what you're doing here. The whole galaxy saw, and we want to be part of it." "The whole galaxy?" Daniel asked. The woman smiled. "Your broadcast didn't just reach human settlements, Dr. Hayes. It reached everywhere. Other species picked it up, translated it, shared it. There are aliens out there who want to meet the humans who helped the dragons. There are species with their own problems who are hoping maybe you could help them too." She pulled up a holographic display. It showed messages from across the galaxy. Dozens of species, hundreds of worlds, all responding to what had happened on Drakon Prime. "You changed something," she said. "You showed the galaxy that humans aren't just another aggressive species looking to conquer and control. You showed them we're the kind of people who will help a mother save her baby, even when that mother has claws and wings and could kill us with a single swipe." Daniel looked at Vela, who stood nearby with her healthy, happy baby. She met his eyes and made that soft sound he had come to recognize as contentment. "I didn't do anything special," Daniel said. "She came to me for help. How could I say no?" "That's exactly what makes it special," the woman said. "Most species would have said no. Most would have seen a predator, a threat, something to fear and destroy. You saw a mother. You saw someone who needed help. That's the difference." Over the following weeks, the colony transformed into something new. Not just a human settlement, but a meeting place. A bridge between species. The Serac shared their knowledge of the planet, helping humans understand the ecosystems they had barely begun to explore. Humans shared medicine and technology, helping the Serac overcome the genetic disorder that had threatened their species. Other aliens began to arrive. Cautiously at first, sending small delegations to observe. They watched dragons and humans work together, saw the children of both species playing without fear, and some of them stayed. A trading post was established. Then, a school. Then, an interspecies medical center that could treat injuries and illnesses from a dozen different biologies. Daniel found himself at the center of it all, still treating patients but now also teaching others. He trained human doctors in alien medicine and taught Serac healers about human medical techniques. The exchange of knowledge flowed both ways. 6 months after Vela first landed in the colony, Daniel stood in the expanded medical center, treating a patient who would have been unthinkable before. It was a member of the Krell, an insectoid species from a nearby system. They had heard about the humans who helped the dragons and came seeking treatment for a plague affecting their young. Vela watched from the doorway, her baby now large enough to fly on its own. The little dragon had bonded with Daniel and followed him everywhere, much to its mother's amusement. "Do you ever regret it?" Karen asked, working beside him. "That first day, when you walked up to Vela, you could have been killed. You threw away protocol, ignored orders, put yourself in danger. Daniel thought about it as he worked. Did he regret it? He looked at Vela's baby, healthy and happy. He thought about the 36 other babies he had saved. He thought about the alliance between humans and Sarek, the friendship that had grown from one act of compassion. No, he said simply. I don't regret it. She asked for help. She trusted me with her baby. How could I betray that trust? Most people would have, Karen said. Most people would have been too afraid. Maybe, Daniel agreed. But fear isn't strength. Real strength is doing the right thing even when you're scared. Vela taught me that. She was terrified. But she came here anyway. Because her baby needed help. She showed more courage in that moment than I've ever shown in my life. That evening, Daniel sat outside the medical center, watching the sun set over the mountains. Vela's baby was curled up beside him, asleep after a long day of playing. Adult Sirach flew overhead, returning to their homes. Human children ran past, laughing and shouting. It was peaceful, normal, right. Vela approached and settled down on Daniel's other side. She had been out hunting and brought back food for her baby. She looked tired but content. Daniel reached out and touched her scales. She leaned into the touch slightly, a gesture of affection. Thank you, Daniel said quietly, for trusting us, for giving humanity a chance to be better than our fears. Vela, of course, did not understand the words. But she understood the tone, the emotion behind them. She touched his shoulder with her claw, gentle as always. In the distance, more ships were landing. More species coming to see the colony, where dragons and humans lived in peace, where trust had overcome fear, where one desperate mother's gamble had changed the galaxy. And it had all started with a simple choice. A choice to help instead of hurt. To reach out instead of pull back. To answer fear with compassion. That was humanity's gift to the galaxy, Daniel realized. Not advanced technology or military might. The willingness to help those who asked. Even when it was scary. Even when it was hard. Even when the one asking had claws and wings and looked nothing like them. Vela's baby woke up and chirped sleepily. It crawled into Daniel's lap, despite being far too big for it, and immediately fell back asleep. Daniel smiled and stroked the young dragon's scales. Vela made a sound that was definitely laughter. This was the future they were building. One act of kindness at a time. One moment of trust at a time. And it was beautiful.